denizens of the night. Welcome to another episode of the macabre, the terrifying. Broadcasting live from a concrete labyrinth, I will be your guide through the witching hours. Tonight, we'll check in with Mr. Vermeil and find out whether he's good for his promise to go through hell for his students. In our last installment, he discovered that he'd been hired at a school full of supernatural students as part of an initiative meant to help them integrate and function in human society. Shortly after that, he received a disturbing series of text messages, which turned out to be from an assassin. He foiled the assassin's attempt on one of his students, but ultimately, the assassin escaped. We rejoin the story as a school-wide lockdown has been called, and that includes our dear teacher. In order to reach the safe house, however, he must pass through a labyrinth of concrete tunnels, and who knows what horrors are lurching through those. This is part 4 of the 5-part series, I'm a teacher at a school for children who aren't quite human. It's called There's Something in the Basement, and was written by No Mass 39.
Something just occurred to me. These last few nights have been the first in years I've gotten through stone sober. Having a few beers after work was just a matter of course, like taking medication before bed so you won't feel sick. If it was a particularly bad day, I'd end up overdoing it and condemn myself to wake up the next morning with a murderous hangover and the knowledge that yet another potentially productive afternoon slipped right through my fingers. But now I feel focused, fulfilled, like I'm doing something that matters for the very first time. The headmistress has the place under lockdown, of course. Every window covered and sealed, multiple lanky security agents attending every class, gas occasionally flushed through the ventilation system. For a woman so emotionless, the slight perspiration on her brow was basically her equivalent to a nervous breakdown. And yet, of course, she demanded that her precious teaching schedule be maintained through thick and thin. I didn't mind. I liked to think that I was helping keep the kids sane, although really it was more like the other way around. I noticed the kids didn't bother to hide their less human features anymore. Like Billy's arm stretching a macabre 17 feet to collect his graded papers from my desk. Or Abigail climbing along the walls like a spider during recess. It made me smile somehow, like they were letting me in on a secret world most people would never get to see. I was just reading them a cute little book about how a human boy and a Wendigo learned to set aside their differences when the bell rang, and there she was at the door, ushering me with a finger. "So who is this Saladin guy anyways?" I asked as she led me down the hall. "A hunter, perhaps the most skilled we know of in the modern era, with a reputation for being capable of punching above his weight class, so to speak," she explained. "We thought we had him occupied chasing false leads across Bangladesh. To think that he was here in America all along, that he was slowly narrowing in on our exact location all this time, and we never knew." She clenched a hand into a fist, for her, the equivalent to screaming in frustration. "Why did he decide to target me?" "Because you're the first fully human teacher this school has ever had," she confessed. "You were an unprecedented experiment. Even though it may introduce many risk factors, such as this, I thought it would do good for the children to have experience with a regular, everyday human." "And did you really choose me because I was a loner? Expendable?" She didn't hear that question, or maybe she just pretended not to hear it. Saladin always pursues more covert means of achieving his ends. At first, he likes to take his quarry by surprise. But if that fails, as it now has, his plan B invariably involves some form of, well, overwhelming force. She sighed. But there is some good news, at least. Thanks to the efforts of you and Katie, he was forced to leave behind his weapon of choice. From her sleeve, she produced that blade that Saladin had been pulling from his throat, the one that would have dealt Katie the killing blow if I'd just been a second later. It was jagged and black, and looked primitive but a bit dazzling with the scarlet streaks embedded into its surface. What's so special about it? It's a blade of obsidian, damascened with agleophotis. To put it simply, it can cut through anything. I reached out to feel its shiny surface, but she jerked it away from me. I would recommend you avoid it even so much as touching it. It may have deleterious effects on a regular human. For some reason, I was reminded of Saladin's words. When dealing with matters of the occult for long, there are two options: sacrifice your life or your humanity. There is no third path. We came upon a heavy iron door in some obscure corner of the school, and she set about unlocking multiple tiers of locks. I apologize, Mr. Vermeil. I know you appreciate your autonomy, but I must insist that you remain within the complex for the duration of the lockdown, she said. That means staying in the dorms, the bunker down the mountainside. I'm sure you've noticed it. Is this some sort of secret path? The school's access tunnels provide secure routes to many places. But I must confess, while the school itself was made to provide a safe and welcoming front for human visitors, the tunnels were not. They were never intended for your kind. She paused. Even she seemed the slightest bit nervous. There are many dangers down there, so I must ask that you stay by my side and do exactly as I say when I say it. Are we understood? She didn't have to ask me twice. I immediately saw what she meant when she said these tunnels weren't designed for human use. They were horrifically claustrophobic labyrinths of concrete, to the point I sometimes had to bend down or angle myself sideways just to squeeze through. The must was suffocating. Hallways of seemingly random shapes and sizes jut out in every direction, and I had no idea how she'd memorized which to take. All it took was a single moment, a single instant's lapse in concentration, a single glance away as my clothes caught on a hunk of concrete, and she was gone. I'll be honest, I don't do well with cramped spaces, and when it fully sunk in that she had vanished and I was alone down here in the dark, my first instinct was to crumple into a ball and start sobbing. Embarrassingly, I had to calm myself down in the exact same ways I calmed my students when they were having a tantrum. I talked through my feelings, took deep breaths, grounded myself. You've been through so much worse than some tight hallways, I thought. Keep it together. But every step forward was a Herculean effort, like I was knee-deep in sludge. All I had to light the way now was my little phone flashlight, and the darkness around me seemed to somehow be fighting back against the light, and was rapidly taking territory. I'd venture forward down a hall, and it'd get tighter and tighter with every step, so I'd turn around, and somehow the same thing would happen on my way back. Was I losing my mind down here in the dark? Or were the walls really closing in on me, like I was about to be crushed by the peristaltic motions inside of some cyclopean creature? And every so often, I'd run into one of those shed skins, like I'd seen in the ditch outside the school all those days ago. They'd tangle around me like a spider's web, and I'd cry out as I thrashed to tear them off of me. On a closer look like this, they didn't seem reptilian in the slightest. They looked human. And then, down the hall, came a sound. I breathed a sigh of relief. "Oh, thank God." I called out, "Headmistress, I'm right." And then came another sound, the guttural crackling of a snarl rising from an unnatural throat, and I realized that I had just drawn the attention of something terrible. I bit my tongue to stifle a gasp. Mentally, I screamed at myself over how stupid I'd been. I tried to turn my flashlight off, but ended up dropping my phone and illuminating the entire hall. All I could do was back up as far as I could, press my back to the dead end, and await whatever was coming to me. Footsteps in the darkness, of a sort of hobbling, awkward gait. In the dim light, a silhouette came vaguely into view. It looked roughly the shape of a man, but the proportions were all wrong. The shapes. It was like a child's drawing of a human being. Too angular, too thin, and along that jagged form was a garden of tumorous growths, hair and teeth and blind, half-formed eyes poking from malignant teratomas, cushioned in almost scrotal pockets of loose and wrinkled flesh. There was no head above its shoulders. Instead, there was a limp, swaying tube of flesh, and when it faced me, I could see down into the countless rows of teeth lining that esophageal tube like a lamprey eel. Some sort of black ichor drooled from that undulating tube as the creature stood where my phone had landed, creaking and groaning in place. Then the thing turned and shuffled back into the darkness. It was blind, of course. It had just been investigating the last noise it had heard. I thanked whatever gods may be and clung to my little corner for what felt like hours, before finally working up the courage to retrieve my phone with a shaky hand and kept creeping down the halls. Another noise. My blood froze in my veins. But then the headmistress's face emerged from the dark, and I almost cried from relief. "Oh, thank God. I lost you, and why didn't you warn me about the creature down here? That blind, leech-looking thing?" I demanded. "I know you said it was dangerous, but I cannot believe you let something like that just go waltzing around down here." And for the first time in my life, I saw the headmistress go pale. "We don't." This time, she kept a hand squeezed around my wrist as she practically sprinted down the halls. We came to an observation deck, observing what looked like some sort of containment chamber. One of those security agents laid sprawled across the floor, split in two. The chamber below was littered with those shed skins, as well as chunks of other things I couldn't name. She looked down on the empty chamber with bewilderment. "The cancer. It's really out. Who would ever do this?" "The cancer? Why is it called—" She swallowed her fear. "Because that's simply what it is. A walking cancer. Cells growing and dividing aimlessly, uselessly, limitlessly." She gestured to herself. "From it, we grow these human skins we wear, guide its ceaseless growth to build our new bodies piece by piece." Automatically, in accordance to some built-in schedule, a red light clicked on in the containment unit, accompanied by an industrial wail. Chunks of red viscera dropped from a tube in the wall, and amid the meat, I swore I saw hands, feet, clothes. You feed people to that thing? She sighed as if my human emotions were an inconvenience. The meat is recovered from cemeteries and morgues. Don't lose your composure now. We have to focus. She laid out the situation. Every cancer wants to spread, wants to feed itself. It'll find a way out before long, and when it does, that won't exactly bode well for the people of our cozy little mountain town. Whoever did this disconnected all emergency switches down here, and we didn't have any signal. We couldn't go all the way back to gather reinforcements. We had to handle this now. On our way out, we found another of those security agents, sat near one of the control consoles by the containment chamber security airlocks. This one I almost didn't recognize as human at first. A man-sized tumor had mostly consumed him, that hairy, throbbing mass bulging as we neared, as if sensing we were threats. Only one arm and his head poked free from the malignant growth, eyes wide and yellow, mouth hanging open breathlessly. The headmistress stood over him coldly. "It was you? You did this. May I ask, why?" He croaked out a few words in a slow wheeze.
"Saladin, he had my family."
She nodded without a word and ended his life with the damascened blade dispassionately. I guess it was a mercy at that point. I felt helpless, unarmed like this. Being the bait was an unenviable position. God, I wished I could get my hands on that blade of hers. I was fighting a panic attack as we went creeping through those halls again, until the headmistress stopped us with a raise of her hand. I was confused for a moment until I strained my ears. There it was, that wheezing, shuddering croak from down the hall. She gestured. I nodded, took a deep breath, and got into position. She hid around another corner as I braced myself and clapped. The immediate roar from down the hall sent such chills through me that my legs almost gave out from underneath me. The thing came sprinting down the hall full force, drool flickering everywhere as its tube-like head flopped around with its movements. I closed my eyes and awaited the end. The headmistress popped out at just the right time. Seizing the moment, she stuck her blade right through the thing's back, leaving it thrashing on the end of it like a field mouse impaled by a spade fork. With speed no human could match, she took chunks out of it, the sort of chunks that even it could not heal back. But it wasn't enough. With a swing of its long head, it batted her away, and when I stepped forward to help her, it impaled me through the chest with that writhing tube and stole my breath away. I was pale and shivering as I held my hands against my bleeding wound.
"This is it," I thought. "This is how I die."
The life that flashed before my eyes was dull and boring, but at least it got pretty interesting right at the end. But darkness didn't come creeping around the edges of my vision like I expected. Instead, I felt a tingling down below. I looked at my chest and witnessed the wound closing. Wait, no. Metastasizing. Bulging pustules of permeating tumors filled the gaps in my flesh, rife with patches of hairs and little chunks of teeth, just as the creature itself had been. I screamed at the agony of it as the cancer cracked through my ribs and pushed my heart and lungs aside. And then those thin, bony hands settled on either side of my head and yanked it upwards with a strength that should be impossible to them. In a rational world, it would have ripped it off. Instead, I felt jolted high in the air and realized my neck had been extended a good few feet through sheer cancerous tissues, like a character from some morbid cartoon. My head bobbed on its distended neck like a jack-in-the-box as I was left staring down at my own body. Every single thing the creature did to me just created more of me to fill the wounds. Oh, God, I thought. It won't even let me die. It was the very distant singing of birds down another hall that ultimately drew the beast's attention away. It visibly quivered, as if it realized it had found its way out. All we could do was watch as the thing tore off into the darkness, roaring to itself as if in triumph. I don't know how many hours have passed. I'm in the infirmary now, largely returned to normal. The three-eyed nurse seems bored, even as she treats me with medicines and surgeries no earthly doctor would ever recognize. Reversing, slowly and by degrees, the impossible ways the beast had twisted and reshaped my body. I've at least regained some control of my physical faculties, but in the process, I've been exposed to whole new categories of pain. Types of agony I thought were impossible. Types I never would have had to know had I gotten a job at any other school in the world. But the poor headmistress in the bed next to me seems more miserable still, shell-shocked even, her eyes sunken and haunted. "He'll be back," I can hear her whisper. "He'll let the cancer gorge itself, grow and grow, and then he'll be back."
Wow! This story continues to surprise me. In a story full of supernatural students, I hadn't expected the horror to come from, well, within, I guess, in a manner of speaking. I appreciate that the author is continually switching up the type of horror on display in each part. This one leaned into body horror, didn't it? With the main character's body being mutated and twisted while he's still alive. Can you guess which movie that scene brought to mind? I'll give you a hint. The title is just one word, and the movie was released in 1988. If you guessed Akira, you'd be correct. There is a scene near the end of the movie in which one of the characters uncontrollably morphs into an enormous flesh monster. It's absolutely hideous. It's the sort of image that has stayed with me for over 30 years. It's definitely worth a look. But if you're sensitive to that type of body horror, you might just let that one go. There are plenty more scares out there. You don't have to experience them all. If you enjoyed this story, you're still in luck. There's one more part to come. If you just can't wait, you can check out the complete story right now by following the link in the description. Please also leave a like on this video and subscribe to hear more infectious stories like this one. Whatever you do, tread carefully in the monster labyrinth and don't fall asleep.